This is the Bob and Tom Show.
And we have great guests in the studio, comedians Brian Dunkelman and Carlos Mencia. We're going to switch gears here. I think we have the great guitarist Brian May on the phone here.
We do, Brian.
Tom?
Bob? Yes, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yes, I'm speaking to you from Barcelona.
Barcelona?
Yes.
Brian, the Olympics are over.
Yeah, all right. Nobody told me.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, we've had a chance.
It's like Miami down here.
We've had a chance to do a little preview of the new Queen project, Queen
Goody.
plus Paul Rodgers, The Cosmos Rocks.
Goody.
And it's a rockin' album. You want to tell us about a little bit of background on the project?
Well, it was kind of a logical step for us because Roger and I teamed up with Paul Rodgers about 3 years ago now, and we went out. We did a couple of big tours, as you know, including not too far from you guys. And the next step was to go into the studio and see what happened, and that was just what we did. And I'm pretty happy with what happened. It was, it's never a straight line in the studio. You go off on all sorts of strange kind of tangents, but we all brought something in, and a lot of things worked out very good. I feel like it's an album to be proud of, and I'm happy to be out here able to play new stuff as well as the old hits that people want to hear, too. You got to do some of that.
Yeah.
So good.
And it's Paul Rodgers has been on our show in the studio a couple times, and he has one of the great voices in rock and roll. I mean,
He's incredible.
You can pick
Absolutely.
it out instantly. One of the cool things about this album that I liked was it still has that Queen touch, particularly the background vocals, and of course your guitar playing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you real quick: are you still playing the famous guitar that you built with your dad out of the?
Yeah,
wasn't
same one. Yeah, she's
Made-
still here with me, still going strong, still not been refretted in 45 years or whatever it is. Yeah.
And you, am I correct in saying you made it out of an antique mantle?
Yeah, bits of stuff that were lying around, including a fireplace. Yeah, that's right. She still works.
That is incredible. And now, do you travel with that guitar?
Yeah. I've never played a gig without it, ever in my life.
Wow.
It has to be one of the legendary instruments in the world of rock and roll. I think that probably in McCartney's Hofner bass.
Yeah. I was looking at a program on Les Paul the other day. I was thinking I have a lot in common with that man.
Yeah. Our guest is Brian May, the distinguished songwriter, guitarist from the band Queen. Can I ask about way back in the day when you guys made your albums? I know one of the things that, at least if my reading is correct, you guys didn't use synthesizers for the most part early on.
That's right.
Obviously, a lot of multi-tracking, but when you would get up there as a foursome, to recreate that sound had to be kind of a challenge.
Yeah, well, there's a few stories to that, really. I mean, the reason that was on there, no synthesizers, was because we did a lot of multi-tracking and a lot of guitar harmony, orchestra kind of things, a lot of backing vocals. And somebody said in a review, oh, yes, it's all done by synthesizers, though. So we kind of wanted to make everybody realize that it wasn't anything except the four of us. It was just us and our instruments. As far as playing live, we always regarded it as something different, and reproducing records on stage is not what we're at. And I think that's still very much true. A stage performance is something in the moment and live, and it's a different kettle of fish altogether. And yeah, of course, I mean, you play the songs and you have a stab at some of those textures, which is fun, but basically it's about playing your instruments and communicating with the audience in a much kind of more straightforward way. I have a theory that in a live show, people can only listen to about two things at once, and everything else is in their imagination.
Yeah. When you do live shows, what is the largest audience you've ever played for?
One of them must be very recently. We played to about 350,000 Ukrainians in the first night of our tour, which was an anti-AIDS concert in Kharkov, which was just sensational, I got to say.
Wow.
And these people all knew the words. That's the strange thing, because countries behind the Iron Curtain were listening to Queen stuff, but it was illegal in those days. They could get arrested and put in jail for listening to it. So they all had these little bootleg cassettes and stuff and shared them and swapped them. So to meet those people who have been with us all their lives but never able to get close to us was a very emotional moment. Really great.
Wow. We're speaking, by the way, to the great guitarist and songwriter Brian May from Queen. Queen has a new project, Queen plus Paul Rodgers, the great vocalist from Free and from Bad Company. And I got to tell you this, I hope you don't take this the wrong way. A couple of the songs had that kind of Paul Kossoff Free feel.
Oh, yeah.
I really love that guitar sound. I don't know if that was a tribute that you did consciously or I guess when you have the presence of Paul Rodgers' vocals, you get that feeling.
Yeah, I think we pulled each other a little in these directions. I think we pulled Paul a little bit more into the kind of arrangement stuff that we do as Queen, and the big heavy bombast, if you want to call it that. And then he pulled us a little more in the blues direction. And of Kossoff has always been a hero of mine. I love that guy, and I wish he was around to enjoy the way people still enjoy his work. I go on every night of this tour. I've gone on and done the solo in All Right Now, which is all kinds of stuff goes through my head at that point. I feel very much that it's kind of in my hands for a moment, and I want to do justice to his great work. Love the guy. Yeah.
And I know that I read somewhere that you have not too long ago received. Am I correct in saying a proper PhD in is it astronomy?
I did. I went back to college and spent a year in addition to the 4 years that I did about 30 years ago, and did my dissertation and the oral and everything, and got the PhD. Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Well, I'm a Sagittarius. Am I going to have a good day or a bad day?
I thought you were going to ask me about the pains in your knees.
Our guest is Brian May, a doctor. I guess Dr. Brian May.
Dr. Brian, yeah, I don't take to being called Mr. anymore.
No. Yes, Dr.
It was
May.
tough. It was not an easy call, that, but it's something, it was like unfinished business for me. Yeah, so Dr. May at your service.
The new Queen project is called The Cosmos Rocks. Is there any connection when you write with your studies of the universe? Does it come into play at all when you sit down with a piece of paper? And
to be honest, not instinctively, no. I tend to write about, personally, people and emotions and the way I feel about the planet and the world and people around me. It doesn't immediately go out into the universe. But we had a lot of discussions about this stuff, because when we began this album, I was actually still doing the PhD. I was kind of employed by Imperial College London. So there were a lot of discussions, and I also wrote a book which is called Bang, the Complete Guide to the History of the Universe. Mm-hmm. So all these things were lying around, and they became part of the background of us in the studio, I guess.
Wow.
Some of it's tongue-in-cheek, Roger had this song called The Whole World Rockin', and it's on there now. You hear it starts off with the whole house rocking, and then the whole town rocking, the whole world rocking, and I went, well, why don't we have the whole universe rocking? So that's kind of, and it's just for fun, it's not a serious comment on cosmology, but it's just fun to think that, yeah, you can get the whole cosmos rocking, so that's kind of how the thing took shape, and there's a few little allusions in there to the cosmos.
Oh, I'm just glad you put that subtitle on your book called Bang, because you get a rock star writing a book called Bang.
It's not about the universe.
It might be about
the universe.
Well,
what are you guys thinking?
Now,
I know there's a few Hollywood stars that have supernovaed, I'll tell you that.
We were listening a little bit to the song Celebrity.
Yeah.
And it's about something we've talked about on this show, which is this whole thing that everybody wants to be on TV, and they somehow think being on TV is going to make them a better person. And it's a great tune, by the way. But
thank you.
An important commentary for our times, I think, that being on TV.
I think it's an interesting lyrical idea, which came from Roger. It was his kind of comment on the cult of personality, I suppose, and the cult of fame for its own sake, which to us is a very alien concept. I don't think it really makes people very happy, but it's taken over the world for a little while, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Once again, our guest is Brian May, the guitarist from the great band Queen. If we could go way, way, way back, Brian, what was the very first band you were ever in? Did it have a cool name?
Ooh, the first band that I had at school was called 1984, which was a very futuristic name in those days, because we're talking about 1970 or something. Mm-hmm. No, way before. No, 1960s. Yeah. And 1984, we named it after the George Orwell book, of course. Mm-hmm. And
was it post Beatles, your first band?
Kind of during Beatles, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. Our influences. Yeah, I was always influenced by the Beatles, always.
But that's a nice literary name. Did you ever have any sort of psychedelic?
It was kind of psychedelic, to be honest. Yeah, it was the time of sort of plastic fairy tale discotheques and stuff, which we used to play in, and people had tie-dye T-shirts, and we did all that. And then we kind of broke up, and when I went to college, I started a band with Roger, our present drum expert, which was called Smile, and that's when we really started writing our own material seriously, and that's when we met Freddie, who was to become quite an influence in our lives.
Indeed, yeah.
And I know we were talking earlier that your guitar famously handmade by your father and yourself.
Yeah.
Are you a self-taught guitarist as well?
Yes, I guess I am. My dad taught me the chords on a ukulele banjo, George Formby style, so I had a little idea of what chords were, and I had piano lessons, which were really pretty crucial to me. I did, I think, 5 years piano lessons, so I got to understand what is inside music, what makes it tick melodically, harmonically, rhythmically, and whatever. But as far as guitar, yeah, I just listened to people that excited me, and those people were, starting with James Burton, Hank Marvin, Les Paul, and then Jimi Hendrix kind of blew my world apart.
Everybody's apart, yeah. Do you ever go back and play the ukulele?
I do. In fact, I just bought at auction one of George Formby's favorite ukuleles, which is a real treasure. And I thought I would give it a good home for a while before I send it on my way. It's wonderful to pick it up and see all the kind of marks of his playing it. It's a really well-loved instrument. Beautiful tone. Beautiful.
Brian, you don't realize this, Brian. We're speaking with Brian May from Queen. Brian, you're talking to a guy who owns a beautiful ukulele. Bob over there has a beautiful pearl inlay. Where'd you get that uke?
It was handmade by a guy named Chuck Moore out of Hawaii. It's just
fabulous.
Absolutely beautiful.
And, of course, Bob has a naked woman inlaid into it.
It goes without saying, Tom.
Very nice for him.
Brian, there's also a legend, and I don't know if this is correct, but I'm going to ask anyway, that when you play, at times you use an English sixpence coin as a pick?
That's what I use all the time, yeah. And I don't use it for acoustic, but for my electric playing, yes, I always use a coin, yeah.
It's
and
interesting.
Your strings last?
Yeah, the coin, strange enough, is a lot softer than the steel strings. So it's not a problem. It's nickel silver, those old English sixpences, and they.
Do you have like a whole bunch of them glued to the mic stand?
I have them everywhere.
Yeah, and does it hurt when you throw them in the audience?
Yeah, I have them as earrings.
My eyes! It's some of the odd things in the world of rock and roll. The Dwayne Allman Coricidin bottle and the Brian May sixpence. I guess that explains why you're one of those guys, Brian. That
has a sound like no other.
Yeah, you hear some of those, the way you play and you go, oh, yeah, that's Brian May. The same way you'd go, that's Carlos Santana or that's Jimi Hendrix. Just having your own voice.
You, thank you. Well, I think the great thing about the guitar is it does let people's personality come through. You can have two guys and you'll teach them the same chords, but they'll come out completely different because everybody has a personal feel. So, yeah, I love that. I love that in guitarists. And guitarists, you notice guitarists are never really competitive with each other. They're always going, oh, yeah, I like that, to each other, because we're all different, and that's the wonder of it.
Yeah, they like sharing and showing off. And
definitely, there's no secrets between guitars.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I love that.
Lastly, do you tend to write on a guitar, or do you sit down at a keyboard or grab a bass? Or
You know what? I usually write in absentia. I write when I'm not near an instrument. When I'm in a situation, something will come to me, and I only use the instrument to develop the idea. I find things sort of come out of the blue, and sometimes if you're sitting with your instrument, it's almost an obstacle because you tend to play the same things every time you pick it up. But if you're someplace else, having a conversation or a drink or, I don't know, walking someplace, and suddenly something just blows into your mind, and that's the seed. That's what I call them, the seeds of the idea, which are so crucial. Now, without the seeds, you have no songs.
Do you remember the melody, or do you call your voicemail and leave yourself a message?
I've done that. I have called my voicemail. Yeah, I usually carry some kind of little recording device, very crude, just to put a melody down. Yeah, because you do forget, and a lot of stuff comes when you're just falling asleep and you can't quite be bothered to get up. So I try and make sure there's a little...
I'll remember that in the morning, and you realize you can't.
Yeah, you don't.
When you leave it on your voicemail, do you say goodbye to yourself? Hi, Brian, it's me, Brian.
Because I need a big hug.
Brian, I know you have to go. Two things. Thanks for, A, taking the time to talk to us, and B, thanks for all the great years of music, and congratulations on the new album, The Cosmos Rocks, Queen plus Paul Rodgers. We have a direct link at bobandtom.com. You can find out all about the new album by going there. Thanks, Brian. What a great pleasure.
Thanks, Bob and Tom.
See you later. Well, he's the world's coolest guy.
Nice guy.
We got to get him in the studio.
That'd be nice.
I was going to ask him if he's bringing the tour to the States.